endless skies. Oh, I'm living that nomad life, city to city, feeling alive. From mountain tops to ocean drives, unchained I thrive, I thrive.
All right, thank you so much for coming to the show. This is Nomads 50 Plus, and my name's Chris Kalaboukis, and I'm coming at you from Silicon Valley, California.
Hey, this is Mary Bartnikowski, and I am coming at you from Syracuse, Sicily, the oldest city on Sicily, 2,700 years old.
So not Syracuse, New York. You're not in lovely Syracuse, New York,
I
enjoying
was
the
born
snow
in
and the clothes.
Syracuse,
No
New
way,
York.
you're kidding me.
So it makes it doubly meaningful.
That's fantastic. So how long have you been there right now?
I've been here just for 3 days, but I'm going to be here all month.
Oh, fantastic. I love it.
Yeah. I got a great apartment. I'm so happy here.
So do you know, have you been there before, or is this a new place for you?
I have been here. This is my third time, and I stayed in this apartment last year, and I liked it so much. I asked the lady if I could come back and block off this whole month. She's
Nice.
wonderful. She's thought of everything. The apartment is really nice.
How did you find the apartment in the first place?
I found it on Booking, but you never know what you're going to get. So I like to try things for, 2, 3, 4 days. And so I didn't want to leave last year.
So you just booked it on Booking, and then you realized, well, this is amazing. I want to come back here. This is great.
Yeah. So I made a thing with her where I came back for this whole month. So she didn't put it on Booking. And she just thought of everything. Her score on Booking is 9.7. I mean, and it's in the perfect location. It's very safe. It's right in the historic district. I mean, this is a UNESCO World Heritage Site.
Wow, fantastic.
Yeah.
So you've been doing this for a long time. How long would you say you've been nomading around the world?
19 years.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Pre-COVID, pre-everything. Practically.
Yeah, and I was traveling during COVID too.
That must have been a little more difficult.
Well, I went to Mexico. That was the only country that would take us.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Did they actually have a list saying here, COVID countries, no COVID countries, or something like that? And that's how
everybody was no, you can't come here except for Mexico. They were welcoming.
Okay, well,
I mean,
good.
no
Then
one
you
was
found a place to
traveling.
go.
Yeah, I know. I'm glad because Mexico was so great during COVID.
Mm-hmm.
4 months I was there.
So what made you first, 19 years ago, you just decided out of the blue, I'm going to do this? Like, what made you decide to do this?
Okay, so this is how I decided. My son was in Nepal, volunteer teaching, and he asked me to come and visit him. And, I wanted to travel the world since I was 5 years old, but I didn't know how to do it. So I was like, gee, I'm going to take 2.5 months off and do this.
So you just had this wanderlust all your life. You just never
all my life
took advantage of it.
But see, I didn't really know how to travel. I mean, in that time zone, like in the I just did luxury. Like in this is the 1990s, I would do luxury trips.
Oh yeah, well everybody did luxury in the 90s, right? I remember.
Right?
I remember a guy telling me once, I want to retire and then sell all my properties and then just live in a hotel every day for the rest of my life. I can afford that.
That's what we thought we could do. But then we found out after the .com crashes.
Yeah. We all thought we were going to be billionaires, right? We were all like little Elon Musks walking around.
And so I took that trip, and I didn't even know you could be gone that long. And I was so excited. I went to Nepal. We traveled in Nepal and India together. And then I went to Bali by myself.
Wow.
And
so was the trip to Nepal sparked your imagination? Like, this is what happened. And I remember the exact moment it happened. I was in Kathmandu, and I was in this old palace hotel where the Beatles stayed during their Discover Swamis and meditation tour. Oh, wow. Could you feel the vibes?
I could feel the vibes. Like, it's since changed, like the earthquake changed it and they renovated. Now it's fancy. But when I was there, it was more rustic. And so I was changing. I got this room for $25 a night.
Wow.
And it was not good. And so I changed the room and I said, so how much is the new one? And the guy looked at me kind of funny and he's like, it's $8. And it was
Wait a
that.
minute. You went from a $25 room to an $8 room?
Which was a better room. It was a share bathroom. I'd never been in a room with a share bathroom, but it was great. Like I saw one other person in that bathroom in the week that I stayed there. The whole time, like nobody was there.
Yeah.
And it was
that
nice
must be
and
bizarre
warm.
to North Americans to have a shared bathroom, isn't it?
It was completely bizarre, but it was that exact moment that I'm like, for $8 instead of $500 a night, I can have this little room in a former palace for $8 a night. They gave me a heater. It was winter in the Himalayas.
That sounds cold.
It was cold. And so
Were you prepared? Did you have all the layers and the puffy coats and all that stuff?
Well, the thing about Nepal is you can buy as much cashmere as you want, and pashmina is for very low cost.
Right. Because that's where they're from, right?
That's where they're
You don't have to
made.
pay for shipping.
It's a fraction of what we pay.
So was that when you got the room? Like when you stepped into the room, is that when you noticed, when you realized, well, this is great, I want to do this from now on? Is that when?
Well, it was that moment when he told me it was $8 where I'm like, oh, you could actually move around the world and not pay that much money. I'd never been exposed to anything like that in my whole life. And it just, my whole life changed in that second. That was it.
Because you keep thinking, whenever you think about, I want to travel the world, you think, oh my God, that's going to cost an arm and a leg. It's going to be super expensive, because that's what we're used to. We're used to really expensive places to stay and live. And when you come across this, it's almost a shock, right? That
it was
it's
shocking.
not as bad as you think. And then, but what was the place like though? I mean, you're thinking like a typical person would think, an $8 room, it's got to be terrible. It's got to be infested. It's got to be
it was so nice. So it was, the room they gave me was all cold, and you could hear the noise in Tamil and Kathmandu. It's a very busy touristy area, and so I went into this room, and I couldn't believe how nice it was. It was in the original part of the palace, so it wasn't some add-on. Thick walls, beautiful windows looking out onto this gorgeous garden, which is now all fancy and spiffed up. But it was so much better. And it was all because of the shared bathroom that made it a lower cost. And I didn't know anything about that. So it was like, I didn't want to leave that room. It was that nice. It was warm. It was cozy.
Nice.
It had high ceilings. I mean, who would ever know that after you spend, $200 to $500 a night, which I was doing at the time, going other places, that was a possibility.
Well, did you think that was an anomaly, or did you imagine that this is what it's like in the rest of the world?
My son was saying things like, "Oh, Mom, you can stay somewhere even cheaper. The climbers on Everest stay at this other hotel.
Here's a $4 night place."
And that's where the climbers up to Everest stay. So I'm like, "No, honey, this is a good one. I'm going to stay here." He kept trying
I think I can stretch to the $8 a night.
I mean, and then he's the one. See, now the other thing he taught me was how to start volunteer projects, which I knew nothing about. You can just go to the country. You don't have to pay $5,000 to be in a program to shovel elephant shit. Honestly, you can just.
Well, that sounds really compelling. I'm assuming there's other volunteer programs that are.
Well, that was the first one I checked out when I was in Palo Alto. I was like, oh, I want to be with elephants. This is going to be cool. So the person called me and she's like, okay, we're going to live with 3 other teenagers in this room. Do you realize what you're going to be doing? And and then it's $5,000. I'm like, are you kidding me? I'm going to pay you?
Wow. So the volunteer, did you always want to do volunteer programs? This is even before you started traveling.
I never even thought of it. My son he set up all these volunteer projects across Asia when he was a teenager, and he went by himself for 9 months.
Wow.
And so he was in Nepal, and I thought, well, I should do a volunteer project while I'm there. He's working. So I wrote this woman I didn't know it, but she had the biggest nonprofit in Nepal for helping girls to get
education,
Nice.
which is later what my son was doing too for his foundation. And then I didn't know anything about volunteering. And she wrote right back. She had been on Oprah. She wrote right back. She said, great, come and teach my faculty how to take pictures of the kids. I'm like, okay. I was so excited. I didn't know anything
that's your
about
thing,
this.
right? Your thing is photography, right? That's how you got.
Yeah. Yeah. That's how I got that program. And we had so much fun. We laughed and had a great time for like a week. They were giving me all this homemade Nepali food. I mean, and their English was so much better than my horrible Nepali. We had a lot of fun.
But you're a pretty extroverted person, so it was easy for you to do that, or were you?
You know, the photography, I'm kind of both. The photography brought, doing these weddings. So what I did for 20 years was I photographed 735 weddings
Nice.
in Silicon Valley, in the heart of Silicon Valley. And it kind of brought out, because you had to get these pictures fast and be fun.
Right.
And it sort of brought out my class clown thing, that I'd get in trouble for in Catholic school. But it was like, oh, this actually works to get good pictures. And so that's kind of what I used, because I'd never done that before. Like there was a lot of pantomiming.
Yeah. Well, that's how you ingratiate. It's how you ingratiate yourself with people, right? I did the class clown thing too. I just tried to be funny, right? I mean, I think being funny works. But what would you say to somebody who's maybe not as extroverted as you? Like what would
Okay,
be
that's a good question, because I spend a lot of time alone now
Mm,
because I'm writing and I'm taking pictures and I really enjoy my company. So what I would say is, if you enjoy your company, you're going to be fine.
mm,
But the other thing that you can do is, and I've done this too, is go to meetups, go to expat groups, so that you do have some interaction. And maybe you do want to try some volunteering, because it is really fun. You immerse yourself in the culture, and then you get all these great connections because these people live there.
when you were mentioning the Nepali before, I mean, some people are like kind of freaked out about not being able to speak English. I mean,
Oh,
how does that become a big issue? Or I mean, I'm assuming people
well,
try. I mean, I've been to countries where they're like, if you try to speak the language, they look at you with derision. But so I don't know.
yeah, it depends on the country. See,
Yeah.
I was really shocked in Nepal how nice people were
Mm,
about not expect. See, actually in Nepal, the kids they know English. They've been
mm,
taught English.
hmm.
So like my son went there to teach English, but it turned out they already knew English, so he ended up teaching art.
Wow.
So like if you get lost in Kathmandu, you ask a young kid and they're going to know how to tell you in English. So it just depends on the country.
Yeah. But isn't it
You
kind of
know,
true globally that most people kind of are taught English in general?
I'm not finding that in every country, no.
Mm.
I think it just depends on where. Like I was just in Paris, and in the in the hospitality areas, in the
Oh yeah.
tourist areas, people are, and it's more younger people, but the older people don't know it.
Right.
And
But
they,
they're still nice to you though. I mean, they're not well, the Nepalese sounds like they're nice to you.
they're nice. But here in Sicily, people are really nice to me. As soon as they hear me say a couple words of Italian, they completely bloom and open up and are so sweet.
Oh yeah, I had that same experience when I was in Quebec City. It's like you try a few words of French and they're like, "Oh, at least he's trying." Right? And
Yeah.
Montreal, not so much.
Oh, that's
Real,
funny. I've never been to Quebec City, but I have been to Montreal, and I was surprised at how many people knew English.
yeah. So so what is it? So after that, you ended up staying in Nepal how long? 3 months? 6 months? How long were you
No,
there
that
for?
first I've been in Nepal 6 times, but that first time I went, I was only there for 3 weeks. Then we were traveling around Nepal to different places, and then we went to India together. We saw
Mm.
the Dalai Lama in McLeod
Wow,
Gange.
you actually saw the Dalai Lama? Is that hard to
Yep.
do?
Well, when he's right down the street, it's not that hard to
He's just
do.
your neighbor. He's like
What's hard to do
going to the
is
grocery store. I'm going to
photograph.
pick up some oranges. I'm just going to.
Run into the Dalai Lama. What was hard to do was photograph him, but I did get to photograph him twice. But then you got to go through the security thing and all that
Oh, I
stuff. But
bet.
he'll have like teachings where his home is,
Yeah.
and you can go there and you have to pass through the security thing
Yeah.
because
Fantastic.
10,000 people show up.
Yeah. It's kind of like an audience with the Pope. You're not actually anywhere near the Pope.
No,
Really.
not anywhere. He walks by and, he's
Yeah.
very nice.
Nice.
So we did that, and then we split up and I went to Bali. So what was your question? You
So
said,
you were there for 3 weeks and then you went to Bali on your own?
and
Were you,
then we had
were
a
you worried
little
about?
bit. I went to Bali on my own. So we were together about a month and a half, and then I went to Bali by myself.
So what drove you to do that? Because you were there with your son, so you had some companionship, and then you decided to go on your own. Like,
Well, he wanted to do some traveling on his own too.
okay.
And so we had both decided, well, we're going to travel together and then we're going to do our own thing. So I was actually going to go to Sri Lanka, and then I decided to change it to Bali because it felt kind of more like, this sounds, I don't even know why I changed my decision about that. But it was the first time. I mean, it turned out to be an amazing trip. I mean, this was 2000. This was right in the beginning, like 2005.
Right. And
I
how long did you
wasn't
stay there?
a month.
Wow.
Yeah, and I went all over the island. I rented a motorbike and
And you didn't
had a
have to, you
lot of
weren't worried
fun.
at all? You just sort of like said, I'm just going to plunk myself in Bali and figure
Yeah.
things out.
It just all worked out. I mean, it wasn't perfect. Like, it wasn't all smooth and everything, but it was right after those bombings happened.
Mm,
And people were like, oh, you shouldn't go. But guess what? Here's what I found out. After some big, horrible thing like that happens, it's actually an absolutely great time to go to a place because
exactly.
nobody's going.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know this.
Yeah. The best time to go somewhere is when no one is going there anymore.
Yeah.
And then after
Yeah.
the fact, they're actually a lot more careful about things. So if anything, this would be the least possible time of anything like that happening again, right? Because they're
Yes.
cracking down and stuff like that.
Absolutely true.
It's kind of like you're going to fly after there have been airline crashes because the chances are much lower that this has
Yeah.
happened.
The plane was half empty.
So you just landed in Bali
Yeah.
and you just said, did you find a place to stay beforehand or did you just wander around looking for a spot?
Well, I got a taxi driver and he was taking me to all these different places. They didn't have we were going to all these different, but I don't know what happened. Anyway, we ended up driving all the way to Ubud, which is not close to the airport.
Oh, no.
And
But
then
is
I
it a nice
found
place? Was Ubud a nice place?
Ubud's a wonderful place.
Mm.
It's like the spiritual center of Bali. So like all these ceremonies happen and it's just so beautiful.
Nice.
It's really nice. If you wanted the culture of Bali, you'd go there.
Very cool.
Not the big partying and all that stuff. It's just, a beautiful place.
Did you find another $8 hotel room?
Well, it was a little harder to do there. It was more like 15 or 20 was
Oh
the
my
deal.
God. You really you
See,
really
now
went
I
all
was,
out.
well, it's funny because like, you're going to be there a whole month. So you're like, okay, what? I mean, I budgeted correctly, I think, but I had no idea about how to think long term.
Yeah.
To try to you're not gonna be spending $200
Because
a
you
night.
were planning on doing this for the rest of your life at that point, right? You were just thinking to yourself, I'm going to do this for another a month and then I'm going home, right? So you never had that
Exactly.
thought.
It was sort of evolving, and then when I got home, that's when it really hit me.
So it hit
That-
you. So after you spent a month there, and
Mhm.
like, was that just as amazing as Nepal, or was it?
Oh, it's so different. It was interesting because so we went into India from Nepal, and so that's Hinduism, and it's Hinduism in Bali, but it's a very different form of Hinduism. So it's like it's a different religion there.
Right.
So I was getting this completely different perspective,
And that informs that cultural, like how they do their ceremonies and all of their festivals and stuff. So it was so different. And the
Mm,
clothing and the language and the money and how people were. It was so different. That was another thing where I just saw how, wow, you can go to a different country and have it be completely like a different planet.
yeah. And everybody was still friendly though.
Yeah. Everybody was still friendly.
That's good. That's excellent. And then what were you doing that whole time for a month in Bali?
I was taking photographs. I was going to different cities on my motorbike. Mainly, I stayed in Ubud, but I did move around to the water. I stayed in the Sanur. I stayed there for a while. Found a place for it was $10 a night. And I
Wow.
thought, well, this is nice. I think I'll stay here for a while because right down the street would be, $150, $200 a night. So it was like this training I did
Mm,
to learn all of this stuff and show myself that I even made friends, that I
yeah.
could make friends. I could go to the markets and, eat what people who live there eat.
Did you meet any other expats?
I met people that actually lived. Yeah, I met a couple expats. The person that owned the hotel where I stayed, she had come from California. I met people that were working there that weren't Balinese, and I met local people. So
Mm,
it was really fun to meet all these different kinds of people and have a totally different experience than being in India and Nepal and feel safe.
right. Right.
Even though everybody said, oh, you shouldn't go there, the bombs and all this stuff. I'm like, I'm not going to not go for that reason.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the chances are slim for it that anything's going to happen anyway, right? So
Yeah.
you were there for a month, and
hmm
then you just went home after that.
And then I just went home and I really didn't want to. It just seemed like such a, what's that word when it's kind of just all of a sudden you're like, anticlimactic.
Yeah,
It seemed like it was too short of a time. Two
right.
and a half
But
months wasn't
we were
long
gone
enough.
2.5 months.
So
Doesn't that seem like a long time?
no one gave me any sort of understanding about that.
But
They
you
were
had plenty of time, you had plenty of money, so you had a nice cushion. You didn't have to worry about anything. You could just go off and do your thing.
Mhm.
And then you when you came home and then it hit you is that you didn't want to be home anymore. Is that right? Is that
Right.
what happened?
Yeah, it was more like I'm coming back to this expensive apartment. What, it's 10 times more than what I've been paying. I mean, I had work lined up. I had a photo exhibition. I
Yep.
had all these weddings to do. And
Yep.
so, I was being welcomed back, but it just looked so different
It was kind
and
of dull and lifeless, right? It didn't
it
have
was
the same
kind of
feeling.
dull.
Yeah. That's
Exactly.
how we all feel about our day jobs anyway, right?
Well, I never felt that way. So
Yeah.
it woke me up to this kind of, oh, okay, you can actually live life a different way. So then the next trip I did was 6 months in South America by
Well,
myself.
how long until the next trip was?
It was only like 7 months later.
So you had the bug at that point. It was kind of like, I gotta do whatever I can to get me out of here. So you did the 4 hour work week thing, just worked long enough to make enough money to go to the next trip. Is that right?
Well, yeah, but it was more like work 12 and 14 hours a day. All you can
Just pack in as much
afford
work as you can so that you
to
can get to the
take.
next
Yeah, I
trip.
mean, I was just doing every photography job,
Yeah,
weddings, portraits, everything in the world to do the money because
yeah,
my new plan was I was going to be 6 months in California, in Silicon Valley, and 6 months on the road.
right.
So that's what I did.
So you decided at that point when you got back that I'm gone again. I'm just gonna work like hell to
hmm
save enough money so that I can do my next trip. And then
Yeah.
when you're remote, do you work when you're out?
Well, I am now. See, what I was
Okay,
doing then was a different thing. So what I'm doing now is I'm doing more consultations. I'm doing more prep work. I'm writing a lot. I'm going to do these library programs for photography and writing when I get back in Atherton and other places in San Mateo
right.
County. And so it's more like I don't want to feel like I have to work, but I'm going towards that where I can be, okay, this is going to be location
Right. So
independent all the way.
you're kind of a work while you're here and then not work when you're away. But you're trying to
Not as
integrate work.
much.
You're trying to integrate work into your whole life, no matter where you are.
Exactly.
So you're
That's
edging towards
exactly.
being a full digital nomad. Even you're kind of a nomad now, but you're going to be edging towards becoming because what you're doing can be done pretty much anywhere, right?
Well, that's the thing. So deciding on which country you want to be in and how you can do the financial part of that, and if you can do it remotely, because, I have my own business, I don't have a boss. It just depends. And so I'm creating as I go along. So this wasn't at all what I was doing in the beginning. This
Right.
is different.
Right. Because you want to be able to integrate the travel and the work at the same time.
Exactly. But I don't want to feel like, oh my gosh, I just, I feel like now I'm doing it even more out of love. Like I have to love what I'm doing.
Mm.
And you have to be kind of obsessed with it. That's what I came up with. If you're not obsessed with it, it's not going to work.
What are you obsessed with? The photography or what are you obsessed with?
Well, obsessed with living your life in this way, location independent way,
Yeah.
where you have everything working out smoothly financially, you're working enough so that you can afford it. Like I didn't ever think I could even afford Europe when I was in South America, in Asia all the time, but I actually can.
Yeah, so the world is affordable. You just have to know where to go, right?
Exactly. And I didn't know before.
Yeah. So
I didn't know.
if you had the like a number one piece of advice you would give to somebody who was aspiring to this life, what would you say?
Okay. I would say take risks, be uncomfortable, and try out experimental ways of living, because you don't know until you try something how it's going to feel to you. And it's really true. I didn't know either. I mean, that's what I did. This is what I did to come to this point in life where I'm living the way I'm living, and it's evolving. So I would say, you're not going to be comfortable. It's going to
All
be
the
a little,
time. Not
yeah.
all the time. Sometimes
I
you will be.
mean, I've already had discomfort on this trip. My flight got canceled to Paris. They
Oh
didn't
no.
tell me anything. I mean,
They told you. They just told you in French. No, I'm kidding.
yeah, I wish they had told me something, but nobody knew anything. Anyway, that's the whole story. And so, and I was just thinking, I was trying to figure out again, I've been to Paris a bunch of times, the metro,
Yeah.
and you're going to be uncomfortable, but I swear to God, I felt new neurons firing in my brain
Right.
because I'm
'Cause
trying to
a new
figure.
challenge is coming across your plate, right?
So this is exactly it. So if you're up for that challenge, it's not always going to be easy and smooth, but you're going to have an incredible experience.
Mm.
Just don't know when, where, how. You just got to be open to it.
Yeah. Well, it's like I think a lot of people they stay in their comfort zones, and it's difficult for them to get out of their comfort zones. But this is the only way people can grow is if you challenge yourself and you push yourself a bit out of your comfort zones. And I think the other thing is that I think people are so freaked out about it. They think it's like so weird and alien and foreign that they're not going to be able to deal with it. And I think it's not like that at all.
Well, that's the funny thing. I had this other writer suggest to me, she's very popular. She said, oh, do a thing where you do a one-way ticket somewhere and you don't have any arrangements for accommodation made, and then you write about it. I'm like, I do that all the time. Like, that doesn't seem daring to me.
That's normal.
Is that daring? I mean, I've done it so many times that it's like, okay, the first time was, and maybe the second time, and I guess it could be a good story.
Yeah.
But it's like, you're going to be challenged,
Mm-hmm.
and you're going to be confronted with, just where it is that you're going to get
stronger and more empowered. And see, that's the thing, because it's like if you have an easy, soft life and things are real comfortable, I mean, what do you want to do? Just die and wait to decay?
Exactly. I don't think anybody wants to do that.
I
It's
mean,
like
if you
my
think
challenge is finishing Candy Crush on my phone today. I mean, how lame is that, right?
exactly. So, and it can be overwhelming, but most of the time it's not. It's just these beautiful places you get to see and these amazing people you're never going to meet at home.
Yeah, yeah. And you can ease into it too. It's like that's the thing is that I think see sometimes people jump like you jumped in the deep end, right?
Yeah.
But there's lots of people who are a little more if they were a little more circumspect about it. They can go on booking, they can book things ahead of time, they can look at things, they can I mean, there's plenty of sites that
Yeah.
get you to these cheap places too. I mean, maybe not like as cheap as the ones you found, but there's plenty of sites that will help you get to those really inexpensive places. You don't have to stay in the expensive hotels. You can stay in the cheaper places. You can figure out, you can do a lot of planning ahead of time. So if you're a planning type of person, there's so much information out there. You can plan your entire trip ahead of time and maybe do that first until you get into the swing of things,
Yeah,
right?
I wouldn't recommend doing what I did because, it's funny. Now I do like this whole 3 months that I'm here, I planned.
Yeah.
And it was kind of stressful, but I wanted to have it planned so that I found out you're going to get the better price. You're going to get the neighborhood you like because now I'm going back to places I really like.
Yeah. But you've been there
And
before. Like if somebody has never been there before, then you want that little challenge, right? To decide if it's a place you want to go.
yeah, because you don't know until you get to a place whether you're going to fall in love with it or not.
Yeah. So the best thing to do is to like book a place for like a few days and then go
Hmm.
there and then decide after a few days if you want to stay longer or find another place
I've,
nearby or whatever.
I've done that a lot. And I also always come to Europe in the winter season because there's no crowds.
Mm. I can't imagine what Europe's like without crowds because we've always been there in the summertime. So
And I've never gone in the summer.
wow.
Not one time
That's
because
pretty
I just look
smart.
at, well, I look at the pictures and I'm like, I can't be around that many people. I just would ruin the experience for me. Like I was at the Vatican once and this was in winter
Mm.
and there were like a sea of selfie sticks
Wow.
that I couldn't even get the picture I wanted because the
Yeah.
selfie sticks were in the way. And I just thought, this is a holy place and I got to see all these selfie sticks. Like,
Yeah. That's why I had this idea is that like, when I was in the Louvre and I'm looking at the Mona Lisa, it's like forget about the Mona Lisa. Take a picture of the crowds in front of
yeah.
the Mona Lisa so people can get a real picture of what it's actually like there.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, you're
it's
not going to
nuts.
be. Yeah,
But then who wants to go to those common places anyway? You want to go places that are a little more off the beaten track, right? Because then you meet interesting people and see new things.
well, that's the thing. Now what I'm doing here on my third time, I'm really noticing like places that the locals are at and seeing how I didn't even see these places before
Right.
because I was more going to the touristy places, which are nice too.
Hmm.
But now I'm like, oh, okay. So over there is this interesting place that I don't see any tourists at. So it's really fun.
Oh yeah. Yeah. But I think you have to be there and spend time there to do these things. But see, you're in a lucky position because you've been able to make enough money to be able to kind of sort of relax when you're out there. But
Hmm.
what if you were somebody who needed to work at the same time as you were doing it? What do you have any suggestions for that?
Well, yes. And so doing it my way, you still could because if you go in the off season and you get the lower prices, like for example, I don't know if you saw, I just did a YouTube short on this $54 gorgeous hotel room in this little port city before I went out to the Iolian Islands. Like that
Yeah, I
would
saw
be
that.
$250 more.
Hmm.
So it so if you're thinking along those lines, then you have to do your research to find a place and a season that's going to be affordable.
Right.
And so I've found Sicily to be that way for me. And I've been coming back every year since 2019. And it hasn't changed in that regard. So, but then before I was doing that, I was going to Thailand every year or Mexico. Mexico's getting more expensive. And, what I get here, I value even more, like the people, the food, not as much noise,
Would you
dogs
say?
barking.
So one of the things,
What?
one of the big problems I have when I'm traveling
Mhm.
is being able to focus on work when I'm
Oh,
traveling,
that
because
is
it's like
hard.
you're surrounded in a completely different environment, and you're like, I just want to enjoy where I am, and it's like, okay, I have to sit down and write this report or do this deck or whatever, and I'm just like, it'd be nice if you could do it from a cafe and have a nice view and whatever, but how do you force yourself to work when you're in these completely different locations?
That is hard. I
Hmm.
gotta say, because like today, I didn't feel like working at all. I was thinking about talking to you, and I wanted to go for a walk, and I knew it'd be really fun because I haven't had as good a Wi-Fi as I have right now, and I was
Yeah.
so excited
That
about
is
the
another
fact
key
that,
concern, is having good Wi-Fi, right?
oh my God, you're not going to get that everywhere. So, so then there's that pressure to,
Right.
okay, can I even get my thing done? Like I've been working on my YouTube channel a lot and it's been working, but yeah, that's a real challenge. I mean,
Mm,
it's not for the faint of heart. I mean, if you can, okay, so how I do it is this, and I always had trouble with this, but if you're in a nice place and you can sleep well at night, which is not a given everywhere,
hmm. Especially in those
it's
loud locations. Like I remember last time I stayed in LA, they actually had earplugs. It's like,
yeah.
just so you know, just so you understand, you're in a downtown hotel. It's going to be noisy out there. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
oh man, thanks for the warning,
Great.
because it
Mm-hmm. I'm so
was.
glad. Yeah. Yeah. So now you got to deal with that.
Yep.
And I have a really difficult time working when I hear noise. So that is rough. That is a tough thing. And, like in Mexico, you hear dogs barking for 24 hours a day. I mean, I can't work in
But that's why you
that.
get a good headphones, right? Or earplugs or
I'm
whatever. I mean,
going to,
there are ways
well,
around it.
okay, there are ways around. You know what? You're right. I'm going to have to get some headphones. I do have earplugs, but probably headphones would work better. So there's that. So you have to
Yeah.
prepare
Yeah.
if noise bothers you.
We'll go into the tech in future shows because there's lots of technology we need to talk about.
Right. Oh my God.
So let's spin to destinations. So
Okay.
I'm an American. I've never been outside of the United States.
Okay.
I love the idea of being a digital nomad, but I have no
Okay.
idea where to go. I'm a little freaked out about not being able to learn the language.
Okay.
So where would be good for me to
I got
start?
some ideas. Okay. So
Okay.
definitely, well, the first one that came to mind and is one of my very favorite countries is Cambodia
Cambodia. That sounds
because
like far and dangerous. Why
it's
would I want to?
not, Cambodians are the most friendly people,
Hmm.
and you can get good Wi-Fi if you go to Siem Reap,
Hmm.
where the Angkor Wat is. It's pretty touristy, so there's a lot. Like I stayed there 2 months
Wow.
in May, and I was working on my app. Like that was my
That's
second.
see,
I didn't
that's
know I could do it.
that's not the first country that comes to mind. I thought you were going to mention something in Europe, but Cambodia, I never thought of that.
Well, I
Like,
was going to mention Europe, but I thought, the thing about Cambodia is that it's very low cost. So once you
mm,
get there, you can live very cheaply, buy coconuts on the street, get really good food, like coconuts fresh for 50
nice,
cents. That's
nice.
nice.
But it's what's it like for like a typical American just sort of dropping into Cambodia? I mean, does everyone speak English? I mean, would it
Well,
feel
the thing
strange?
is, because Cambodians are so friendly and hospitable, they're they welcome people like us
Hmm.
coming who aren't from there, who are there to spend money and see things and want to talk to people. I mean, I just had the best. I've been there twice.
Nice. And how long did you
Once
stay
with
when you go?
a month with my son, and we stayed at a beach place. We both went there separately and then we went together. And then another time I spent 2 months there
by
Wow.
myself.
Wow. Did you work when you were there?
Yeah. I was working on the second issue of my iTunes app. I had that it was a paid magazine subscription thing, and I had that for 5 years. So I was working on my second, so I had to have good Wi-Fi,
Yeah.
and I got it. I
Nice.
got it there. So I could upload pictures, and I had no problem. I got a really good recommendation for this expatty kind of place
Hmm.
that
So
was highly
there were a lot
recommended.
of expats there you could hang out with too.
Well, I didn't really hang out with them that much, but they were all downstairs at the bar.
So if you wanted to hang out with expats, you could just go downstairs and have a drink.
Yeah,
But
that place was
there are a lot of
great.
expats in Cambodia.
Well, I met a lot of tourists that were going through there because, Angkor Wat.
Hmm.
And then I met people that lived there. So there were a lot of expats. And I ended up actually doing some photography teaching, paid photography teaching, and meditation I
Oh,
taught.
nice. For the
Yeah,
expats.
what?
For the expats. That's
For the
who.
tourists.
For the tourists. You're right.
Yeah. And I taught a yoga session right at the hotel. I mean,
Nice.
it's funny because I didn't expect it to be that fun. So you don't know. Like my son kept telling me he'd been to Cambodia first before me. He's like, you got to see Angkor Wat. It's the largest religious monument in the world. It's
Mm,
amazing and incredible. And you can't even see it in one day. I
right.
went 5 times and I didn't see
Holy
it all.
cow. That's
Yeah,
amazing.
it's that big. It's incredibly big.
Wow.
So,
See,
and
now
it's
you're
it's
making
not.
me want to go.
Oh, you gotta go, Chris. The temples aren't close together. So,
Mm,
I was riding my bike in the dark to get
yikes.
to
And it's
that
it's
Angelina.
safe where you are?
Well, it's felt a little freaky, but it was more like everybody was over at the main one to see the sun rising. But
Mm,
I wanted to go to the Angelina Jolie temple,
of
the
course,
one
because
where,
that's you would.
you know what I mean? And nobody was
Wow,
there.
you have a knack for finding places that are empty. I love it.
See, that's the thing. I don't like big crowds.
Yeah.
So
I
it's
don't
like,
think
I
many
don't,
of us do. I don't think many of us do like big crowds. But
and
plus
so,
it detracts from the whole experience, right?
yeah. Yeah, I was at the main temple like later, and I said, I was asking this guy to not smoke right next to me, and he thought I was asking if I wanted a cigarette to smoke myself. And I just thought that was so funny because you're in this crowd of 2,000 people
Hey,
watching this
while in
ceremony.
Cambodia, do as the Cambodians do.
Well, yeah, I would say yes, but he was a tourist.
Oh, okay,
Being
so there you go.
nice, being nice to me, like, here's a cigarette, probably from Europe, because a lot of people smoke. But anyway, it's true. I like to find the places where the people aren't, even in the places where the people are.
Yeah, yeah. You should do a tour like that. It's like empty whatever, like empty Angkor Wat. It's like just take people to places where there's no people or the right time to
Eh,
play. Because it reminded me when we were in Kyoto. We were in Kyoto. We were at the big shrine there, and it was like chock full of people. But then I read it was open 24/7, and I thought, well, the best time to
Oh,
come to this place is like 4 o'clock in the morning
yeah.
because nobody's there. I mean, that would be amazing. It's
Yeah.
that shrine that's got all those torii, like hundreds and hundreds of those red gates
Oh my God.
and it's absolutely beautiful, but it's so chock-a-block full of people. It was awful. I'm like, okay, I'm coming back, and next time I come back, I'm coming back at 4 or 5 a.m. Maybe watch the sunrise, and the place will be empty. That's exactly what I want to do. So you're
That's
absolutely
what I
right.
did. I'm so
Yeah.
glad that you're thinking that way because it was such an experience for me to be walking in this. It felt like I was in this like mystical movie or something.
Yes.
This is
How
the
it
one where
should be experienced. Exactly how it should be
right,
experienced. Yep.
right. I
Yep.
mean, I want it to be special, and it was. I mean, it was a little scary. But then the funny thing was, I was there by myself, and then these two girls from Canada appeared out of nowhere because they
The
were thinking the
Canadians.
same way. Yeah, the Canadians are cool.
We are. We're pretty cool.
You are cool. You got some great comedians. There's always the coolness factor with
That's right.
Canada.
That's right. That's right.
And they were the
Little
only
maple
other
leaf on
people
the
there,
backpack.
right?
So, okay, so Cambodia is great. Sounds like that would be
Okay,
a place to investigate. Any others?
absolutely.
Like,
Yeah.
give me one more. I think we have time for one more.
Okay. I mean, I would say to go to Italy in the winter, not this year because of the Jubilee in Rome, because
Yeah, so what's
things
the
are.
deal with that? It's like
What's the deal
the
with is the price is doubled?
wait, the Pope's doing something this year? What is it? Like
Yeah,
he's
every 25 years he does this Pope thing,
oh, so it's kind
and
of like a solar eclipse. We don't have to worry about it for another 25 years.
yeah, it's not going to happen again for another quarter century.
Okay, so
So,
do not go to Italy in 2025 or
well,
2050. But
yeah. But you could go to Sicily. So I would highly
Sicily's
recommend
okay. So just stay out of Rome.
Sicily.
Stay out of
Nothing, just stay out of Rome.
so stay out of
Don't
Rome.
go
What's your
through
if
Rome.
right. Well, I've been to Venice and Rome, and I'm like, this is nice, but I want to see the rest of the country. So you recommend other places in Italy. So Italy is good for so Cambodia for Asia, but Italy, would you say was your first choice for Europe?
I would say Sicily is my first choice for Europe.
Okay, Sicily
Yeah,
specifically. And
in
is
the
there
winter.
any particular reason?
Yes, because Sicilians are so friendly. They don't care if you murder the language. The food is incredible, and it's pretty darn sunny here
Wait a
in the
minute. Every
winter.
time I think Sicily, I think mafia. Am I okay with that? Do I have to concern myself about that?
They don't care about the tourists. I talked to this longtime resident, and he said they don't care about the tourists at all. They care
Mm,
about people coming in with trillions of dollars. So you're
okay.
safe.
So the
Yeah,
tourists are fine. So
tourists are fine.
so I would just go straight to Sicily. Is that right? Is there a way to go
Straight.
straight there? Or
Yep.
do you have
You
to
can
fly into
go.
Naples or
Nope. You can go through Rome, but I don't even recommend it. If you can get something like direct from Paris, that's the best
so
way.
there's a flight from Paris directly to Sicily?
There is, and there's also direct flights from Nice, France.
Oh, nice. Or
Yeah.
Nice for that.
Yeah.
So 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 what are the differences? So it sounds like people are also friendly in Italy or in Sicily as compared
Yeah.
to in Cambodia they're friendly, in Sicily they're friendly, and then do you see a lot of expats in Sicily as well, or is that a different story there?
It's a different story. I have been seeing some expats, and I'm going to go to an expat meeting in a couple of weeks and meet some more people, and
Hmm.
maybe even before that. But there is a group that meets, and I haven't seen that many around town, but maybe they go other places, but I
Do you,
have seen some.
so do you recommend doing that then when you go to a new place?
Oh, definitely.
Hmm.
Yeah. I've met some really nice people doing that, both residents and expats.
And
So
that's
you
just on
always
Meetup?
meet somebody nice.
That's
Yeah.
just on Meetup?
Meetup or Facebook groups. There's always an expat Facebook group for pretty much anywhere you go.
Because we're like everywhere, right? Americans, you can
Yeah.
find us anywhere in the world.
Yeah.
It's like wherever,
Yeah.
even if it's some remote location, there's probably expats there too, because we kind of like to roam.
Yeah, and it's a pretty amazing city. So to me, it's not surprising that they be here. It doesn't seem like there's a lot. There was a lot more in Nice, France,
Mm.
that I noticed because it's really nice weather and it's kind of posh there.
But you also want to hang out
Um,
with the Italians, right? Or the Sicilians. Do they consider themselves not Italian?
they don't consider themselves Italians.
Yeah, that's what I figured.
The food is different.
It's like Cretans. They don't consider themselves Greek either. They consider themselves Cretans, not Greeks. It's the same with every island. So it's the same with Sicily, right? So it's Sicilians. They're different. And I'm assuming the language is different too. It's not quite Italian. There's some
The dialect is a little different, but I
yeah.
can't tell the difference. But of course, they can understand my bad Italian. But I mean, I'm murdering the language, but they know what I'm saying.
So
They help me out.
would you recommend getting like a Duolingo or something like that, doing something ahead of time to get a little bit up to speed, or is it better to just go in cold?
Well, with Sicily, you could just go in cold, and you could in Cambodia too. I mean, I learned some words there, but it's neat. Oh, here's what I do. I like to do like YouTube stuff, and there's a lot of. I mean, you could do Duolingo if you wanted to, but
on YouTube, you just like see, okay, I'm going to learn these words. I'm going to learn how to ask where the bathroom is. I mean, I'm learning every day and I'm not doing it.
Isn't that the first thing you learn? Where's the bathroom? One beer, please. Stuff like that. There's like the phrases the first things that you learn.
Yeah, well, it's nice when you learn them because then you've got a little bit of a basic foundation and then they treat you a little bit differently because you're not acting like everybody knows English because of course they don't. A lot of
Yeah.
people don't here.
So
They say they don't, but they actually know more than I know Italian.
they just want to tell you. One of the things I didn't like about Greece in the off season was that it is
Oh, what?
cold and wet.
Okay.
So for people who want to go to Europe in the off season, because it sounds like that's what you're recommending, we should be okay with that? We're
It's
just not going to
not
go to the
as,
beach.
okay. So the temperature's between 45 and 55 pretty much
Right.
every
So
day.
it's
And
cold.
sometimes it goes up to 60.
For Californians, it's cold.
Well, I felt like, yeah. I mean, I landed in Paris though, and it was 32. Oh
Ooh,
my
yuck.
God. It was so cold. I thought about staying in my hotel room. I didn't, but I was freezing. So
Yeah.
to get here felt a lot warmer and it's
Mm.
sunny, like the sun is out. It's
Yeah.
not like, okay, it rained
It's still
last night.
beautiful. Is it still
It's still
beautiful?
beautiful. It's still
Okay.
gorgeous. I mean, it's so fairy tale. It's all these Baroque buildings. The architecture is out of this world. I just did a
Mm.
short of the architecture, like
Mm.
25 seconds of the architecture. It's just beautiful. Oh my God. It's so pretty.
Nice. And so,
Yeah.
would you recommend Sicily over any of the rest of Italy?
Well, yes, because I've spent the winter. I always come in the winter, and I have gone in the winter to other parts of Italy, and they're great. Like the smaller places like Assisi, I've been in Reggio Calabria, which is over on the heat, like across from, like there's other places. You don't have to go to the big towns.
Mm.
The Amalfi Coast is really nice in the winter. There's nobody there.
Mm.
Sorrento, Capri, and the prices are lower, so that's good. So I mean, I'd recommend that. Puglia, which is on the other side of Italy, would be a good
Spelled
place to go.
Puglia, right?
Yes, that's right. So that would be a good place to go. It's supposed to be sunny and the food is very different. I haven't gone there yet, but I want to do it. And what's the other place? Oh, so the new place I discovered this time was the French Riviera in winter. I had
Ooh.
no idea that was going to be as good, and it's more expensive than here, but not so much more. Like the prices start going up in April.
So the French
To the
Riviera sounds really expensive and posh and upscale, but you're saying that it is accessible outside
It's
of, say, high season?
accessible. Yeah, because I spent a whole week there, and it
Wow.
was
It didn't empty out your bank account completely?
no.
Wow.
I found okay. So for example, the place that I got was 450 for the week US, and then
That's
I
amazing.
checked.
That would have been
Yeah,
for a day or even half a day,
and
usually.
guess what it I tried to get it again in the first week of April. Guess what it was? Oh, it's now 1,000
Oh,
for the week.
geez.
I'm like, I'm not going. I'll
Still,
come
that's
back
not
in
bad for a
winter.
week. That's not bad for a whole week.
Well,
Not
it
bad.
probably isn't, but for me, it's like I'm not paying twice as much when I know I can get it for 450
Yeah.
in the winter. I'm not gonna go then. So I found another place
Yeah.
for the same. I mean, okay, it was still more, but I'm gonna go back on my way
Yeah.
back.
Well, I love the idea of traveling when there's not a lot of tourists around. The only downside I would be thinking about is the weather, right? Because like I
But
said, we were
it
in
hasn't
Greece at
been
the
bad.
we
Oh,
were in
what
Greece at
happened to
the
you?
we were in Greece at the
Okay,
end of October, and it
okay,
started getting windy and cold, and I'm like, you're when you picture Greece, you picture sun and
that's funny.
sun and sand and blue and everything,
You
and then
and
it gets
Susan are
exactly we're lazy.
well.
No, but it's the
I
best
haven't
time to
been
go.
in October.
Yeah.
So what would
Well,
you say about it?
what's odd about it is that it's actually so when we were in Milos, one of the more southerly islands,
Okay.
and it was cold. And then that same trip, a few weeks later, we were actually in Positano, and Positano was warm, which is that even
Mm.
though it was further north. And I'm like, so
Okay.
maybe there's like a thing where Greece gets, because it's the Eastern Mediterranean, maybe there's something cooler. There's some winds that are
Okay.
cooler there, but
Yep.
Italy was warmer. So
Yeah.
maybe that's like when you're saying Sicily and the southern coast there, that probably stays warmer throughout the entire winter
Yeah.
as opposed to Greece. So Italy would probably be a better place to go off season than anywhere else because you
Well,
get that,
see,
especially when you're at the south end like that.
yeah. I mean, I have been in Rome in the winter when it was pretty cold. Not
Mm,
as cold as Paris, but as soon as I got to Sicily flying from Nice, I was shocked at how sunny and just warm and pleasant and beautiful it was.
nice.
I mean, I took the train from Paris, only 5 hours to Nice. And then, wait, and then from Nice to Palermo, it was sunnier again and warmer. So it does get warmer as
Yeah.
you go south
So
to
your recommendation
Sicily.
is, I love this, your recommendation. That sounds good. And how did you find this place that you're staying at?
This place that I'm staying right now
Yeah.
in
How'd
the
you find
apartment.
it?
Okay, last year I found it on Booking
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't expect to stay. I came for a couple days and I thought I got to stay longer, but I need an apartment. And I just took a chance. And it was like walking distance from my hotel room. See, the cool thing about Syracuse, is the island of Ortigia. You can walk everywhere on the island. It's all
Oh,
flat. It's
beautiful.
beautiful. It's just gorgeous Baroque architecture. And it's just stunning. Like everywhere you look, and it's an island
Mm-hmm.
and everything is close.
I love it.
So that's how I found it on Booking. There's a lot of good apartments on Booking.
Well, we're going to go into that in more detail in future shows, but I think our time is up for today.
Okay.
Thank you so
Yeah,
much. This has been great. We could talk forever. We could
I
just
know.
talk forever.
I forgot we were getting recorded.
Oh, this is so cool. So I will put links in the show notes to all the places you mentioned. And if you
Okay.
have some links that you want to send me, just send it over and I'll put them in the show notes and we'll go from there. But we'll do this again many times. Many
Okay,
times.
great.
We'll book it. We'll
Fantastic.
book it.
Yeah.
All right. Talk to you soon. Thank you
All
so
right.
much.
You're
Bye.
welcome. Bye-bye.
Oh, I'm living that nomad life, city to city, feeling alive. From mountain tops to ocean drives unchained.